Hello, and welcome to the Europast podcast. This podcast is part of the international project Europast, funded from the Horizon Europe Widera program. Europast tackles contemporary issues in memory studies, memory politics, political discourse, and most importantly, public history, a field of study and practice that explores the ways in which the production of knowledge about history can be rendered more democratic, open, collaborative, and empowering, as well as the challenges associated with this process. In this podcast, members of the project team talk to public history practitioners, researchers, historians, activists, filmmakers, and many others about the developments, challenges, and implications of this fascinating approach of dealing with the past. If you would like to know more about the project, follow Europast on Facebook and Twitter. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
We're in Vilnius at Vilnius University. My name is Violeta Davoliūtė, and we have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Corinna Kuhr-Korolev, right from Germany. And you're a historian and the curator, and also you are a partner in our project. Tell about yourself in a few words.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for being here. Who I am, I'm a researcher. I'm a historian for Eastern Europe from Berlin and Potsdam, and I'm working at the Center for Contemporary History in Potsdam, which is one of the partners of Europast. And I'm working on a project on the history of Soviet and post-Soviet museums. And I'm also a curator, and I'm in Lithuania because I'm doing research for an exhibition project on a cemetery for German soldiers in Kaunas.
Why cemeteries? What is it for? What's the result?
Okay, this is a very, it's not so easy to tell, but okay, so everyone understands that there were German soldiers in Second World War and also in First World War in Lithuania. And there is a German War Grave Commission, and they are in charge of all the cemeteries for fallen soldiers in Europe, and not only in Europe. There are about more than 300 such cemeteries in Europe. And this organization in German called Volksbund Deutscher Kriegsgräberfürsorge e.V., they were founded after the First World War. And they still exist. And after the end of the Cold War, they started to work also in Eastern Europe and try to find dead soldiers which were not buried properly or which were buried somewhere in the countryside. So they are seeking for them. They are digging. And in Kaunas, there's one cemetery where they want to organize or already organized a huge cemetery. There should be buried about 5,000 soldiers.
Explain to me, I don't quite understand. What does it mean to make an exhibition?
On a cemetery.
On a cemetery.
Yes, this is a problem. And we organized such an exhibition in Crete, but there it was easier because it was not on the cemetery.
Right.
Because, of course, you should not disturb the atmosphere of a cemetery. In Kaunas, it's a bit more difficult because it's an area where there's another cemetery for Lithuanian soldiers of the fallen of the First World War. Then there's a cemetery for Soviet soldiers and another Russian cemetery. So and the German one is part of the territory, and so we will have to do something somehow close by, and there won't be much space. And we will, of course, work with audio sources, so that people can use their own mobile devices to get information.
But who are the visitors? What is this for? Who are, the audience?
we have to get in contact.
Why in Kaunas?
Why in Kaunas? Why in Kaunas? Because this is one of the biggest German cemeteries in Lithuania. This is one reason. Another reason is that there will be German soldiers again. If cemeteries used to be all these kind of military cemeteries, used to be a place where relatives came to visit their fallen fathers or grandfathers. Now there are not many relatives left. And the organization, the War Grave Commission, they in the future, they want to use these places as educational places. And the idea is to bring school classes there, to bring international youth camps there, and also to visit the place with German, and not only German, with NATO people who are now working, or how you call that, have their bases in Lithuania.
Mm-hmm. Has it been practiced before?
No, it's not such a new idea, because they started already after Second World War in France. There were these kind of international or youth camps between French and Germans, and the first slogan of the Volksbund, of this educational part, was Versöhnung über den Gräbern. So the idea was we are like the former, or the first idea was we work together on the graves, and we do work and together.
So you mean France and Germany?
France and Germany. So this was one, how I can say, one of the beginnings of the French-German friendship after. And French and German people, they were really enemies for a very long time, and they managed to get friends after Second World War.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an example of how nations can find a common language after.
So it strikes me that it's actually intensely political as well. It's part of international relations, right?
Of course.
So this is a good example of how one can use these educational activities and cemeteries, in this case, to come to terms with the past. Were there cases of conflicts over these graves and over these cemeteries?
Of course, there were such examples, and the biggest problems is that the main idea is that everyone who is dead is dead, and they are all equal. But of course, if you think about these soldiers, they are not all equal. And there's a big difference between a young soldier, 18, 19 years old, who was just sent to the war and didn't know what he was doing, and an SS officer. And very often they are together on these graveyards. Mm-hmm. And so there is, for example, on Crete, on the island Crete, there was people from the population. They were very much against this place, because there is one of the main generals in wartime, one of the commanders. He is buried also on this graveyard, and this, of course, causes always troubles. The same in Poland, where they have SS officers on a graveyard.
So how do you resolve these problems then? How do they, what do they
do? Differently. It's negotiations, it's explaining. And in Crete, it was very much about leaving as it is and explaining why it is like this, and making people think about this historization of the history also of the graveyard. And in Kaunas, of course, we also have these kind of problems, because most of the soldiers are young soldiers who died in the very first days of the invention, or at the last days, and they are more younger. But there are also people who...
They died in Kaunas.
No, they died somewhere in the surroundings, or on the way to Kaunas, or at the battles when the Red Army invented the area or the territory again. But we also have some persons who died somehow in 42, 43. And of course, the question is, I mean, you see in which parts they were engaged. And of course, there might be people who took part in the Holocaust. There are surely persons who were somehow involved with these so-called battles with partisans. Mm-hmm. And then there are guards of the who guarded the war prisoners. Mm-hmm. As you know, there are a lot of 100,000 Soviet prisoners of war who died in Lithuania. So, and they were also guarded by German soldiers. So to say about someone that he's not guilty is difficult, and to say he's guilty, it's very difficult we have to think that everyone can be guilty, but maybe personally is not guilty, because there are also persons who were not guilty.
All right, but as a curator, and as a historian, how do you communicate this very complicated history and legacy, this heritage to different people, as you said, to kids, to students, to soldiers? How are you finding these guidelines? I know it's a big question, but
we're just starting to plan the exhibition. We can talk about it in some months. Of course, we will show biographies. We have some biographies of pictures and family pictures of some of the fallen soldiers, and so we try to do research on certain persons and to discuss certain persons who are.
And you see that the biographies are diverse, right?
Of course.
It's very diverse types, diverse characters.
Yes, of course. We try to find diverse types, and we will also tell the context, the whole story about German occupation in Lithuania, and there we also will try to find certain features who are helpful to connect people with the topic. For example, if you know, there was a German composer, Geist. Edwin Geist,
of course. Yes.
Who came from Berlin and who died in Kaunas. And I found his music, for example. So maybe we would use his music for audios, which we will produce.
That's a remarkable story. He went to die voluntarily, right?
Yes. He married a Lithuanian woman, and she committed suicide after his death. So this is also a German-Lithuanian story.
Right.
And so these kind of stories, I think, help people to understand what happened, because, I mean, there is a lot, there are enough exhibition about the Holocaust in Lithuania, about partisans. We don't have to tell this whole story once again. We also have to connect the exhibition to the exhibitions who exist in Kaunas.
And you told me that you did not find too many photos that would show kind of the daily life during the German occupation. And tell a bit about that. Where did you search, and what were you looking for, and what you did not find so far?
Yeah, today I was also in the Center of Genocide, or is it called like this?
It's a Genocide and Resistance Research Center, I think it's called.
And there is some information about the Einsatzgruppe A, like the really persecutors, but the German Wehrmacht officers or soldiers, they are nearly not existent on these photographs, and And of course, I think it's very problematic to show all these SS guys in uniform and these propagandistic German films. We try not to use them in the exhibition. So we are not going to show. We will talk about people from the SS, and maybe we will show them somehow. But we will show them maybe in Nuremberg if they were executed. But we won't show them in uniform and like these like strong figures. We want to show them in a different way. We also won't show like these murdered persons. This idea of what are you allowed to show on?
So you don't want any
shock.
like you have like very clear ethical norms. You don't want any sensationalism, and you want to maintain respect to people who died, to the bodies and so on. Is this the idea?
Yes, I think we will be very. Yeah, I think this exhibition won't be very emotional. Maybe in terms of public history, it should be more emotional, but the topic is so difficult and so delicate. So I think we should stick on this very poor, solid.
Yeah, very kind of matter of fact and very discreet. Yeah, okay. Talking about difficult heritage, let's talk now about the Soviet period. So I know how Germany was dealing with the experience of World War II and the Holocaust, entire Vergangenheitsbewältigung process and so on. What about the Soviet experience? What about the legacy of DDR?
Okay, this is a huge topic, of course.
Yeah, but just make it short and simple.
Short and simple, yes.
I'm joking. Well, take your time.
I think maybe what I first want to mention is if you talk in German about this period, you won't talk about the Soviet period. You will talk about the socialist period. So this is post-socialism for Eastern Germany, and it's not post-Soviet. And this makes a difference because in Lithuania it is to be not a part of the Soviet Empire is another idea than to have changed the system. So in Eastern Germany, there's not the idea that they were part of the Soviet Empire. They were part of the socialist bloc.
Socialist project, right?
Yeah. So, and this makes a difference. And
how? In what way?
And I think this is if I look at all the exhibitions and like the history, culture, history, politics in Lithuania, and I think about Germany. So here is much more need to say we are not Soviet anymore, which is we are not Russian anymore, and we don't want to have anything in common with Russian culture. And we don't have this kind of impulse in Eastern Germany. There's not this idea we have to fight against Russian imperialism. There is even more sometimes the idea we have to, like the Western Germany and the Western world somehow occupied Eastern Germany after reunification. But the idea that there was kind of a Soviet occupation of Eastern Germany is in the broader public, I think, is lost. So this GDR history is seen much more positive than the Soviet past is seen in Lithuania.
Is there a generational difference as well?
I think not really. I mean, this is what they figured out, because we have a huge discussion the last year. There were 2 books were published. which caused a lot of discussion among the broader public and the historians. And these books were published, one by an historian, she's working in Great Britain, and it was not a very solid book. And the other one was published by an Eastern German who is a Germanist. So he's not an historian, which also caused somehow...
What was the book about?
It's called, the person is Dirk Oschmann. He's a professor for German language or literature in Leipzig, and it's called The East, an Invention of the West. So what he is claiming is that if we have a problem, and this is also already like actual politics, if we have a problem that people now voting for the Alternative für Deutschland and for this Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, then he thinks this is because this inner wall, which divides Germany, is still there. It's still there in the in the heads of the people, and actually, he's talking about, I would say, discrimination of people from Eastern Germany in the last 30 years. But
does it exist? Some of my students, I had German students over the years here, and several of them pointed out that there is a discrimination. If you look at, various statistical data, salaries, unemployment, and so on, you can actually see it. What do you say?
I think there is some discrimination. And of course, in the West, there is a certain image about people in Eastern Germany, but there's also an image of the West in Eastern Germany.
But in 30 years, why did it remain? Sorry to interrupt. Like, why do you think it remained? 30 years passed. And
I think one important argument, and Dirk Oschmann makes this argument, has to do with money, with capitalism, because in Western Germany, after Second World War, we had this Wirtschaftswunder, and people get rich more or less.
Right.
And so this kind of wealthiness, richness,
so the economical basis
is still there.
Yeah.
And it helps people to get a good education.
Yeah.
It helps people to get abroad. It's a certain habitus between like the Western political, economical elites and also academic elites. And what he's claiming that he is nearly the only Eastern German professor in humanities. And so, yes, this is one part of the story. But still, I mean, he makes it very easy. And he is claiming that he wanted to provocate a discussion, and he was successful. And you only get a discussion if you really pronounce very strongly. That's what he did.
What was the title of the book in German?
In German is, I think, wie der Westen den Osten erfand. Something. I'm not really sure.
So basically, like following kind of Larry Wolff's Inventing Eastern Europe and so on. That line. Right. So that's one aspect. Once again, talking about difficult heritage, difficult legacy, you visited this exhibition in Vilnius on nomenclatura, right? It's called The Sweet Life of Nomenclatura. Antanas Sutkus is a great photographer. You told me you know.
I agree, absolutely.
Absolutely, he's a great photographer. What did you think about the exhibition? And where do you think we are in terms of coming to terms with the legacy of nomenclatura and so on? Like, what have you noticed as a visitor to this exhibition, as a curator, and also as a German researcher?
Yeah, I mean, this exhibition left me a little bit unsatisfied, I have to admit. I really admire Sutkus, and I like this kind of Soviet photography, and even did some research on this topic. So I think it's very good to show Sutkus. The mixture, the curators decided, there is some strange idea which the whole story does not go together, I think. So there is this fancy title, the Deutsche Vita of the Nomenklatura, which is a good title. And if they wanted to show this topic, there would have been other topics which they had to show, like dachas and cars, and not a whole room for the topic of hunting, and not maybe a whole chamber with telephones. And then this argument that Sutkus himself was part of the nomenklatura is also not really correct, because I think he was part of the privileged part of Lithuanian society as an artist, but he was not part of the nomenklatura. And if you want to create an artistic exhibition, then I think they should have concentrated on the artistic value of Sutkus. If they wanted to somehow discuss the topic of nomenklatura, they should have gotten somehow more in detail concerning the topic of nomenklatura, which is very interesting and attracting. So, and what comes out is something like using the interest in this kind of glamorous topic of socialism.
Right. And kind of in a way not dealing with it, as you said, in depth, and even, I don't know, personal biographies, the continuities through family histories and so on. Although there was criticism in Lithuania by some famous or semi-famous people that this is basically a normalization of nomenklatura. Others wrote that this is in a way, othering, right? Is some kind of attempt to other this nomenklatura. But that, I guess it shows that still it's very difficult to deal with this kind of legacy, and it's not quite clear how. So you mentioned that in the end, I think it says, I forgot now, but basically bye-bye nomenklatura or something.
Yeah.
But in a way, there are family histories, private lives, inheritance, personal material legacies, and so on. And it's very complicated to talk about it, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I said. If you want to show like an artistic exhibition, then they could have chosen other photographs. If you want to come to terms with these topics, you really have to think about what was nomenklatura, what are the legacies, for example, these people just did not disappear, and also their apartments and their dachas and their cars.
And their companies.
And their companies, yes. And they had a good socially and cultural capital to start in the new period, in the new capitalistic period of after independence. So this is something to discuss. And also you have to discuss how the nomenklatura was involved with the party, the KGB,
right,
and repressive organs.
Exactly, those repressive structures. Yeah. Right, talking about parties and so on. My final question is, so how is it going with the elections? German elections are coming really soon. So what's happening there? Say a few words. What do you think is going to happen?
What is going to happen? I think at the end, nothing really serious will happen. We will have a government which will be quite similar to the government we had, but it would won't be led by the Social Democrats, but by the CDU, the Christian Democrats. Politics won't be so different, but in order to get votes or voters from the Alternative für Deutschland, what they discussed today is they have to change migration policies. And as we see in other European countries and in Denmark and in Sweden, there will be a direction to more right-wing policy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.